Welcome to the stage our next speaker, Andrea Fernandes.
Okay, so we all know that childhood trauma is a big issue. But how serious is this? Well, the World Health Organization tells us that 1 in 3 people are victims of childhood trauma globally. Let's just put that into perspective for a second. Try combining the population of China and India together. That's roughly the number. So it is a big issue, right? If you think of a family member or a friend, you can think of maybe one of them are victims of childhood trauma. These have long-term impacts on the person's physical and psychological well-being later in life. So they're more prone to develop mental illness, and they're also more prone to engage in high-risk behaviors such as like interpersonal violence or even substance abuse. So how do we actually measure this, and how can we study this? Let's start by thinking that childhood is a very sensitive period for development. So children are not only growing physically, they are also learning how to regulate their emotions. And their brain is also developing. So you have regions of the brain that talk to each other, and they form connections. These connections are being established, and they're getting stronger for making the person function later in life. However, during trauma, these connections are being damaged, okay? So the brain can actually are in a position that it needs to compensate and maybe create different connections that are, I don't know, more vulnerable to trauma later in life or to stress. Just to give you an example with a day-to-day situation that you're more familiar, and that's the reason I have this weird map in my back. So you have the power disruption map in Galway. You're pretty familiar with this. If the Salt Hill Central Station has a fault, look at all the regions that are affected. I live in Barna, and if I have no electricity for a few days, ESB might decide that, okay, let's just supply them with a temporary line. But this temporary line is temporal, meaning that it's weaker, okay? So if there is another fault, there is a big chance that I will not have electricity again. So the brain works in a similar way. So what am I doing? I'm working at the Clinical Neuroimaging Lab here at the University of Galway. We're looking at adults' brain scans. We're looking at people with different types of childhood experiences. And we're comparing their brain scans. We're looking at the brain connectivity, those communication between regions, in order to answer questions such as, does childhood trauma affect brain connectivity? Is this relationship different with people with some sort of mental illness, for example, mood disorders? As you can see in the mapping here, it will tell you why it's important. In Ireland right now, we don't have like a national survey that gives visibility to childhood maltreatment. And therefore, we don't have a child prevention plan in place right now. So it tells you the impact of this type of research. It's not only for understanding our mental health and the impact of childhood trauma, but also informing like future policies. Thank you.